Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I'm going to detail NBA player Kawhi Leonard and his sister Kamisha. Now, Kawhi Leonard and his four older sisters grew up in Compton, California, and had both of their parents in their lives. When Kawhi was around 5 years old and Kamisha was around 10, their parents Mark and Kim would get a divorce. This would separate their family, with Mark moving out the house. Even though Mark moved away, he was still heavily involved in his kids' life and being a good influence to his kids, with Mark and Kim always being hard workers, and Mark even owning his own car wash. Now, growing up in Compton in the 90s and the 2000s, the kids had to face harsh realities of the outside world. Compton was one of the most dangerous cities to live in, from having thousands of crimes reported yearly, from murders, assaults, robberies, and anything violent you can think of. With Compton being infested with several Crip and Piru gangs, Mark and Kim made sure to have a handle on their kid's life to keep them away from the bad things in the area. Kawhi wouldn't even go to high school in Compton. He went to high school in the Moreno Valley and also Riverside to put him in a safer environment. But in Compton, a tragedy would soon affect Kawhi's family. January 18th, 2008, Kawhi's dad Mark would get into a dispute, which was said to be with a few young men at his car wash that he'd never seen before. The man left after the argument, but returned hours later at night as Mark was closing up the car wash. One of the men got out of a car with a hoodie on his head and fired multiple shots into the car wash. Mark's new wife Jacqueline, who was pregnant at the time, was at the scene as well, but she wouldn't be hit by any bullets. But unfortunately for Mark, he was shot 10 times, taking his life. Kawhi and his family got the news when they were on their way back from one of his games. Kawhi answered his phone to hear his stepmom telling him his dad was dead. The shooting would go unsolved, and over 15 years later since the shooting, no one was ever arrested.
Wife who saw her husband get shot and killed right in front of her.
And I kept saying, he's killing him.
The victim is 43-year-old Mark Leonard. He was shot and killed in front of his car wash in Compton. These are crime scene photos from the investigation.
The conversation escalated to loud voices, getting closer to one another, and that scared me.
The car wash is no longer here. It's now another business. Jacqueline says it started when a friend came by hoping Mark would help mediate a dispute. She says she didn't know who the other people were. There was a loud discussion, everyone left, and then she noticed something unusual.
This truck where the other people were in kept driving back and forth by the car wash. Now, my nerves are really getting bad because I'm thinking, why do they keep driving by here?
Hours later, at closing time, someone walks through the gate and comes up towards them.
And he had on a gray sweatshirt and this hood over his head and all these dark clothes, but you couldn't see him, and he had something across his face. You could only see eyes. And I said, and when I went to say, who the heck is that? He starts shooting.
The suspect then stands over Mark Leonard and keeps shooting. He then runs off.
I ran outside and laid on Mark's back and was telling him, hey, you got to make it. You know, what about me? What about the baby, the kids?
This was sent Kawhi's family in turmoil in many different ways. Kawhi lost his best friend, and him and his siblings lost one of the most important figures in their lives. This made Kawhi become closed off and more serious, and also give sports everything he had.
Her stepson, Kawhi Leonard.
I knew from having Kawhi around me, I knew he's the kind of child that was going to be quiet and draw into his emotions. He was always a quiet child, but he seemed more withdrawn to me and focused on his basketball. I think that was his therapy. I think that for him, that was how he got through it.
Giving sports everything he had would pay off for Kawhi, with him getting a scholarship at San Diego State, which he attended in 2009, a year after his father's death. After a few successful seasons at San Diego State, Kawhi would be drafted into the NBA with the 15th pick in the 2011 NBA draft. He would become a young, promising player. But Kawhi's sister Kamisha's story wouldn't be so successful. She didn't take the path that Kawhi did. She went the other way after their father's death, and that was the streets. Over the years, Kamisha would be having a hard life in the streets, being arrested several times for crimes like petty theft, grand theft auto, and attempted robbery. Once Kawhi was financially stable, he helped his family, and that included Kamisha. He moved her out of Compton into Temecula, which is about an hour away from Compton, far, far away from the hood. Kamisha's mindset wouldn't change, even with a better life and a better opportunity in front of her. In 2015, Kamisha was arrested for robbing someone at a casino called Pachinga Resort Casino for their earnings. Standing at 6'2", 300 pounds, she was used to robbing and overpowering people. But lucky for her, she wasn't prosecuted and walked free, but she was banned from the casino. Kamisha wouldn't stop her old ways. In 2019, her and another woman named Candace went to the same casino that Kamisha was banned from. They walked in planning to rob easy victims. 84-year-old woman named Afaf was at the casino and just won $1,000. Kamisha and Candace followed Afaf in the bathroom and beat her till she was knocked out. Afaf was rushed to the hospital with a broken skull and was later pronounced dead 3 days later. Kamisha was later picked up and charged with murder and robbery. With Kamisha now having a rich brother and easily able to make any bail, the judge gave her no bail.
Cameras as she waited to be arraigned on murder, robbery, and elder abuse charges. Kamisha Williams is similarly charged, but she emerged with her high-profile criminal defense attorney at her side. Both women are accused of murdering 84-year-old Afaf Assad at the Pachanga Resort and Casino back in August.
It's a shock that I heard that news, like they are suspected of doing something like that, because it just mind boggles me because I've been knowing them for a long time.
Letitia Garrett said she doesn't believe the women meant to harm the victim during the robbery inside a casino bathroom. Assad died 5 days later from multiple skull fractures.
I'd just say something that got out of hand because I don't believe that was intentional. You know, I just think it was something that got out of hand.
Both Williams and Townsel's arraignment was put off to a later date as requested by their attorneys. While Townsell was appointed a public defender, Williams' attorney would not disclose who was paying to retain her. At the time of Williams' arrest, a sheriff's investigator noted Williams had family connections that could potentially post $1 million bail. She is the sister of Clippers forward Kawhi Leonard, who signed a $100 million contract with the team in July. It's that relationship that has another of William and Townsell's victim asking why they needed to steal from her.
If you have a brother that has all this money, why don't you just ask him for the money instead of stealing from people if you're so well off?
Kat Brode says in July they robbed her after following her home from a gas station. Both women were later convicted and sentenced to 30 days in that crime.
They could have killed me that night. You know that. I'm lucky they didn't.
A month later, Williams and Townsell were arrested and charged in Assad's murder. Williams and Townsell's next scheduled court appearance will be on October the 30th.
After serving several years in the county jail, Kamisha was sentenced to life in prison in April of 2023.
Life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's the sentence for Candace Townsell and Kamisha Williams, convicted of robbing and killing an elderly woman in a Pachanga Resort Casino bathroom in 2019. Prosecutors say the two women attacked 84-year-old Afaf Assad as she left the bathroom stall, knocking her to the floor where she hit her head. She never regained consciousness. The two defendants also have prior convictions. Williams is the sister of Clippers star Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi being worth around $80 million and putting Kamisha in a situation to have a better life, she still went the wrong way and would spend the rest of her life in prison. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you check out my previous episodes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.